Welcome back. Great to see you again. What this quick video is about, it's basically a practice session. What I would like to show you here is how you can get the code from the GitHub repo as well as some helpful documentation. So basically, before we go into part 2, please do the following. Run the stage 1 simple console game implementation. You can get the code from the GitHub repo, which is right here. It's at github.com under Code Creative Works, and the repo itself is Game of Life Python Solid with the dashes in between the words. Once you get the code and unzip it, because you're going to get it as a zip file, you simply run it. You will go into the backend subdirectory and you're going to run main.py with Python in the console. Let me show you exactly how you would do all that. So I gave you the link for GitHub, but basically what you would do is, let me just grab that. You could basically just go to github.com and then you would type Code Creative Works. Once you do that, you would get to this page. And in this page, you can see that here we have repositories 1, which is basically this repository right here. But what you will be looking for, in case you come here a little bit later and there's many more repositories, you're looking for the Game of Life Python Solid repository. If you click in here, you're going to see a bunch of tags in here. If you click here, the tag you're looking for is stage 1, and you basically grab this zip. I have downloaded this right now. I have created basically like my own kind of like repo, which is GOL. You can create whatever you want, where you're going to keep the stages, but here, I'm just going to copy the file that I downloaded into GOL. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to simply unzip it. I'm on Windows, so it's pretty straightforward. I will simply just say unzip. So right here, extract all, and it's going to ask me where I would like to extract it. What I'm going to actually do is I'm going to remove this path right here, Game of Life, like that, mainly because it would create that within itself. So basically it would go Game of Life Python Solid stage 01, and then it would put it into exactly the same directory. I'm going to extract it right here in the GOL folder, extract. That's basically done. I've extracted this so I can get rid of the zip right now. No need to keep stuff around. So, okay, if I go in here right now, you will see that I've got basically a readme.md, and I also have a backend and a docs directory. If you go into the docs directory, you will see that we have some diagrams here. These are the diagrams in the exercises that I want you to do. So for example, here is the actual class diagram that you can go through. And also we have a sequence diagram that tells you a little bit more as to how the application works based on user input going into console UI, the rules engine port, game engine, rules strategy, and the game observer. So you can kind of look at this and then walk through the code and the class diagram to see how all of that works. And if I go back here into the back end, this is where all the code is, but most importantly, this is where you have main.py. This is what you're going to be running. Okay, so now let's go back for a second into our repo. So let's go back here. You can see actually that there's a README here. This is the same README that you've downloaded, but it's much easier for you if you don't have like some sort of a reader. It's much easier for you to read it here. So I suggest that before we go into the second part of this series, the next lecture that I'm going to be uploading, that you actually read through all of this here. It shows you basically how you're supposed to unzip and then how you're going to run it. It explains everything. It explains the controls that we have. It gives you a bit of an architecture overview. And I even put in a couple simple exercises here. Basically, try to do exercise A, exercise B, exercise C, and exercise D, and E for the future lectures. This way, you will be able to explore this on your own in between as I upload new material. Okay, perfect. So now let's quickly have a look at how we would actually run it. I'm going to change into my Game of Life. Right here, I have the Game of Life Python. This is basically what I have unzipped. So I'm going to change into that. Perfect. So in here right now, as you remember, we have backend. So I'm going to change into the backend. And if you look at everything that we have here, we have a main.py. All you need to do right now to run this is simply go Python and main.py. And we have just started the Game of Life. You can see that we have, this is obviously a command line based one. This is our first simple iteration. So you have a bunch of choices right now. As a user, you can click N to get next step. So if I click N and enter, you can see that it's actually computing new generations. You can see the number of the generation at the top there, generation 4. And I can also make it run on auto. If I go A and run it right now, it will just keep on going. Watch the generations. It's literally right now running a very simple game of life in a command line interface. As you can see, we have reached a stable state. This is basically not going to change anywhere, even though the generations are running. I can go now Control C, and I can go Q for quit, and we're done. All right, so go through all of this code, go through the UML, and in the next lecture, we're going to go deeply into this architecture. All right, so this is about the GitHub repo and the access that you have to it. If you need to, create a virtual environment and install any needed dependencies. All right, so now that you know how you can get the code and run it and have a look at the documentation, let's continue. So what I would like you to do is try a few different grid sizes. Figure out basically how you could change the grid size for the application. Also, I would like you to open the UML class diagram for stage 1 and just stare at it for a minute. Get used to the idea of looking at more of a forest rather than the trees. And I would like you to try to identify where the rules live. Where are the actual rules for the application? Also, I would like you to figure out where the engine lives. Where is the actual engine that is running all of this? And of course, where the UI plugs. So basically, how do we plug the UI, which at this point is a console UI, how does it plug into the solution? Now, I would also ask you to take your time and look at the sequence diagram to see how all the pieces work together. The next thing that I would like you to do is go into the source code and open core-grid.py and try to anticipate or try to understand the following. What functions do you expect to actually see there? Like, think about for a second, how would you structure the grid for this application? What should not be there? For example, there shouldn't be any printing or networking. So think about basically the solid principles and specifically the single responsibility principle. That's all I basically would like you to do. Go through the README file as well. Now in part 2, we will do a proper architecture tour. We will go layer by layer, core, engine, UI, config, and infra, and map each class from the diagram to a real file and discuss where the actual patterns, where the design patterns live. All right, so I'm going to see you in part 2. Have a great day, and as always, keep on coding. See you soon.